Hello and welcome back to Cinema Wellman. I am your host, David, and today we are paying tribute to a film that celebrates its 48th anniversary this year. It opened on June 20th, 1975, and created a name for itself when it became the first summer blockbuster. If you're watching on YouTube, you can clearly see by the set decoration that we will be talking about all things Jaws today. And we even have the Narragansett. It takes place around the 4th of July, and it's mandatory viewing on that day here at Cinema Wellman. It's one of the films that has a residency here. It's also why you're getting this special episode on July 4th. Happy 4th. Being the movie geek I am, I'm often asked what my favorite movie is. It's a great question that I chicken out of and never really answer. I think it's akin to the favorite album/song question. That answer may fluctuate over time. It's not always set in stone. I can certainly tell you some of my favorites. Citizen Kane is always mentioned at the top of such a list for me. It's one of the first films I studied in depth at film school, and it's one of the films that I know the most about as far as its production and the new film techniques that it introduced. I also mentioned Casablanca very early in such a conversation, and I still think it may be the closest thing to a perfect film ever made. And then there's Jaws. Jaws is always right there with those two legendary films in my mind, but there's something about Jaws that differentiates it from the others. Citizen Kane came out in 1941, Casablanca a year later in 1942, 20 years before I was born. When Jaws was released on June 20th, 1975, I had just finished 7th grade. Jaws is in my wheelhouse. I was on the ground floor for this cinematic masterpiece and phenomenon and have watched it seep into all things pop culture for the past 48 years. I read Peter Benchley's novel On the Beach at Seaside Heights, New Jersey, while on vacation back in the summer of 75. So did my sister Vanessa and our friends Kimmy, Joey, and Stevie Nogue, who we vacationed with almost every summer right there on Ocean Front. If you're watching on YouTube, this is the very novel. It's the same novel. It's weathered well. There was shark fever that summer, not only in Seaside, but all across America. Sharks were everywhere you looked, in and out of the water. Anything that could have a logo on it had the Jaws logo on it. Many years later, Dakota took me to a screening of Jaws where the soundtrack was provided by a symphony orchestra. I spoke about that in the Cinema Wellman Origin Story episodes as being one of my all-time favorite movie-going experiences. Hearing that iconic score played by a live symphony while watching the movie on the big screen was something that I will never forget. I was actually speaking with Dakota earlier today, and she mentioned that she and her sister each have their films with me, kind of like the way we have our sports teams together. Hannah and I have the New York Football Giants and the Big Lebowski. Dakota and I have the New York Rangers and Jaws. Dakota gave me this Jaws bracelet. It's got the shark's jaws, and which I love. Maybe Hannah can get me a Big Lebowski bracelet for my other wrist. I found out that Dakota and I aren't the only ones with this Jaws thing. I mentioned to my friend John that I was doing this episode, and his response was, "Oh my, was I into that? That was a big deal." So I asked him to send me some notes about the film and what it meant to him, and I wanted to now share a bit of that with you. John's paternal grandmother had retired to the St. Pete area in Florida and took up beachcombing and fossil hunting. She gave John some of the shark teeth that she found, which got him into sharks in the good way. He recalls seeing another shark movie in 1971 titled Blue Water, White Death, and like many our age, read the novel Jaws early in its cycle. John's always been interested in science, so he enjoyed that side of the phenomenon as well. He also mentioned seeing this movie on opening night in Carmel, New York, at the UA Cinema at the Putnam Plaza. It was the first time that he had seen a line outside the theater. And the only other time that he remembers seeing a line like that was a couple of years later when a movie named Star Wars came out. So thank you to John for sharing some of his Jaws memories with me. It's one of those movies people in my generation are just connected to and with on a different level, I think. Jaws filmed on Martha's Vineyard right here in Massachusetts. It was the first film to earn over $100 million. And now movies do that in a weekend. It was nominated for 4 Academy Awards and won 3. It took home Oscars for sound, music, the great John Williams, who is now retiring, and film editing, the also great Verna Fields. The only Oscar it was nominated for but failed to win was that of Best Picture. And that year went to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And I can't argue with that choice at all. I love Jaws so much, but I can't argue with that choice at all. Also nominated that year were Nashville and Dog Day Afternoon, and that is quite a cluster. I won't mention the 5th nominee because it was horseshit. Jaws spawned 3 sequels. Jaws 2 it was made in 1978, Jaws 3D in 1983, and Jaws The Revenge in 1987. When I told my musical director Andy about this episode and asked him to Jawsify the Cinema Wellman theme song, which he did, and it's fabulous, he asked if I was going to watch them all over again. All of the Jaws movies. I thought about it, but I remembered that all 3 sequels were rated as bombs in the archive, so I decided against it. Jaws also spawned countless ripoffs, including Cruel Jaws, Moose Jaws, Deep Jaws, Santa Jaws, and I'll bet some of those are better than the official sequels. The Jaws shoot was legendary for its difficulties. I read 2 different books about the making of Jaws, and I was fascinated by the idea of making movies because of it. This film is definitely one of the reasons I decided to major in film. Jaws was just the second feature film directed by Steven Spielberg, and he really thought it would be the last. Things were such a mess that he said that in a 12-hour day on the set, they were lucky if they shot for 4 hours of the 12-hour day. Spielberg wanted authenticity, so he didn't want to film it in the Universal tank on the lot. He wanted it to be filmed on the Atlantic Ocean. Sure thing. Trust the kid. He's smart. They go to the ocean, put the mechanical shark in the water, and it seizes up because of the salt water. Nobody thought of that, which to this day amazes me. The delay in getting the shark to work properly turned out to be the part of the genius of this film and its storytelling. We don't see the shark full on until the 121 mark of the movie. Mechanical failure equals directorial genius sometimes. Spielberg later said, "It's what we don't see which is truly frightening," which is also something that Hitchcock, I think, would agree with. And this is definitely a horror film. When people ask me what my favorite horror films are, I'll give some, well, Jaws, and they'll say, "Wait, what Jaws? Jaws not a horror film?" And I would say, wait, are monster movies horror movies? Yeah, they are. Is the shark a monster? Well, yeah, it is. And I'm like, okay, you just answered your own question. And Spielberg and Hitchcock, I think, are on the same page here. It's what we don't see, which is truly frightening, and that's what sometimes, and a lot of times, builds suspense. Something else that's totally planned revealed the genius of this still kind of rookie director. About 25% of the film is shot at water level because Spielberg wanted us to feel like we were treading water. Just brilliant. Along with the difficulties, also legendary are Jaws' fin facts. There are so many little tidbits of trivia about the film, I can't help but share a few. Here we go. Director Steven Spielberg thought composer John Williams was joking when he first played him the now famous theme. Wait, that's it? That no, no, wait, that's it? Um, Neither Quentin nor Hooper had been cast 9 days before the start of shooting. Co-stars Robert Shaw and Richard Dreyfuss hated one another, and this off-screen tension added to the on-screen relationship. Author of the source material, Peter Benchley, was thrown off the set and later fired for adding too many subplots to the screenplay, including romance and mafia intrigue. How on earth are you weaving the mafia into this? I just don't understand that at all. Robert Shaw was in severe tax trouble with the IRS at the time, so he had to be flown to Canada on his days off to avoid being, I guess, arrested. The first choice to play Quint, Sterling Hayden, had to turn down the role because he was in tax trouble as well. Why don't people pay their taxes? I don't get that. Robert Shaw's amazing USS Indianapolis monologue, he convinced Spielberg that he could do it drunk. So he got drunk one night and they shot it. None of what they shot could be used. So they did it the next day, and he did it sober, and he apologized to Spielberg, saying, I thought I could do that. And it just didn't work. The shoot was supposed to take 55 days. It took 159. The troublesome mechanical sharks were named Bruce after Spielberg's lawyer. They were built at the cost of $250,000 each. The famous jump scare shot of the floating head of the boat in the boat wreckage, it was shot in editor Verna Field's swimming pool. She and Spielberg, and I think that's it. Maybe one or two other crew members, and that was it. It's disappointing because I always thought it was real and I wanted it to be real, but that shooting star, which is perfect, is a little too perfect. That was added in post-production. Roy Scheider, and I haven't spoken about Roy Scheider yet. Roy Scheider, I always loved him in anything he was in, all that jazz, the 2001 sequel there, the 7-Ups, the French Connection. Roy Scheider always reminded me of my dad. I think facially, the fact that he wore glasses and facially kind of that square, rectangular kind of look, he always reminded me of my dad. And to this day, like I watched Jaws today. And when I see Roy Scheider, I think of Ray. So that's always good. And it's another reason why I think this movie's special to me. Scheider's iconic, you're going to need a bigger boat, that was ad-libbed. And I love stories like that. Before we wrap things up, I wanted to talk about some of the items decorating the set today. So you can see that the set is all Jaws today if you're watching on the YouTube. My niece Megan gave me an official Amity Island Summer of 75 Jaws kit that included all sorts of items, including that towel, a rubber shark, postcards, stickers, Amity Island tour guide, Larry Vaughn for mayor pins, copy of the Amity Gazette. Oh, this isn't good. Oh, yeah, maybe we shouldn't vacation there. Yeah, and there's also the movie features the arcade game Killer Shark, which we played at Seaside. Fantastic. We've got the here's the tour guide. We've got everything, the whole island, the whole map of everything is here. It's an amazing collection of items, and I think that this company should make one of these for every movie, and I will help them. I also have two different Jaws board games, both that I've deemed too difficult to figure out how to play. So that task is being farmed out to Quinn in IT. He's also, he's already read the directions for one of them and said no problem. That 12-pack of Narragansett is courtesy of John and the Whole Foods in Danbury, Connecticut. Not a sponsor, but I would like them to be. These are the 1975 cans, just like Quint drinks in the film. As if I needed to prove more proof about how this film is spread into every aspect of pop culture, I recently stumbled across this. It's a little golden book. You know the people. You know the little golden books. You know them. Way back when they brought you the Pokey Little Puppy, and they brought you Scruffy the Tugboat. Now they've teamed with Funko to give us Jaws, Big Shark, Little Boat, The Book of Opposites. I will now do a cold read of the book before signing off. I have not read this book. So here we go. We have Jaws and Funko, Big Shark, Little Boat, Book of Opposites. Welcome to the little town of Amity Island. People come here to swim, boat, and have fun in the sun. Today there's a special visitor in the water. Wait, what? A very big, great white shark. Everyone is having fun in the water. Da-dum, da-dum, da-dum. But then someone sees a shark fin. Da-dum, da-dum, da-dum. Everyone runs out of the water. Staying on the beach will be just fine. So remember, this is a book of opposites, in and out of the water. Okay, so now I think you're on board now. Wait, that's not a shark. It's two kids playing a joke with a fake fin. So fake is the word. So kids, what's the opposite of fake? A man in a rowboat sees the real shark. Row, row, row your boat as quickly as you can. Because the shark is gonna eat you. Police Chief Brody is afraid of the water. He wants to stay dry. Matt Hooper is a scientist who knows that you have to get wet to find sharks. Uh-oh, this shark seems to have very pointy teeth. Hooper and Brody head out to sea with Quint, the fisherman. Quint climbs up the mast to look for the shark. Brody stays down on the deck. There's the nice orca there. There's Quint. Oh, by the way, I forgot to show these. I have a couple more Jaws t-shirts. Quint's Shark Fishing, Amity Island, established 1975, and I think that's when it ended, if you know what I'm talking about. And then I also have this t-shirt, which is Hakusai's Great Wave off of Kanagawa, and there's the orca and the big shark there, and of course the Jaws t-shirt that I'm wearing. Okay, so back to the book. Suddenly, the shark bursts out of the water. It is very, very big. The boat suddenly seems very, very small. You're gonna need a bigger boat, Brody tells Quint. No shit. Hooper leans over the water and watches the waves. Where did that shark go? The shark swims under the water. There's the shark. It swims very fast. The boat chugs after it, but it's too slow. Cooper wants a closer look at the big shark. He gets inside a cage and goes in the water. The shark is outside the cage, and Hooper hopes it stays there. That night, the shark circles the boat. It is very quiet. Chasing sharks is hard work. Quint, Hooper, and Brody stop to rest and sing a loud song. They are also shit-hammered. I guess the opposite of that would be sober, but there's not a page for that. This is also the scene where they compare their scars. I don't think that's the next page. Even big sharks get tired. The shark is ready to head home. It's time to say goodbye to Brody, Hooper, Quint, and Amity Island. Let's return to the front of the book, just in case the shark comes back. Da-dum, da-dum, da-dum. Okay. So, all I'm going to say is that they had a perfect opportunity to go with, since this is about opposites, the shark was hungry, and after it eats Quint, it is full. So they had an opportunity there, and I think they dropped the ball. But that's quite a little story. I will read that again at some point. Well, that's a wrap for Cinema Wellman's Salute to Jaws. That was a nice ending. Thank you again for joining us. We at Cinema Wellman realize that, there's a ton of content out there, and we appreciate you carving out some of your entertainment time to spend here with us. Whether you read the blog, watch on YouTube, listen to the podcast on Spotify, we are pleased that you're consuming all things Cinema Wellman, no matter how you do it. And as always, please consume safely. Join us again next week when we will celebrate our 50th episode of Cinema Wellman. Our Diamond anniversary will be all about Diamond movies. And until then, take care. I'm just gonna read a little bit here. The great fish moved silently through the night water, propelled by short sweeps of its crescent tail. The mouth was open just enough